There it goes. It wasn't showing the picture again. I don't know why it does that.
Good morning, all. We'll get started. Looks like you've got the pledge again, or the invocation again, John, or did you have the pledge last time? All right, we'll do that, and then Doug James will do the pledge. Welcome to join us.
Stand with me. You bow your heads. Father God, we come to you today with humble hearts, with contrite hearts. We come to you with thankful hearts in this harvest season. Thank you for the beautiful colors that are outside. Thank you for the people of the county. Thank you for the blessings that you have poured down upon this county. Father God, our answer to you today is yes. Yes to whatever you would have us do. Please give us the wisdom to understand that and to know that, to work your plan because that is the plan that we want for this county, your plan. We ask all this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Doug?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Bell,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Freeling. Whoop, she was here. Okay, Harrison,
She's here.
yeah. Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Majerick,
Here.
Meeks,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Borat,
Present.
Werfel. Here. Yarborough. Elliott.
Here. The minutes from last week were sent out. Hadn't heard about any changes, so motion to approve those minutes is in order. Moved by Werfel,
Support.
supported by Harrison. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. I believe we have some communications, which
Yes,
if you
received
could
on,
summarize those, that would be fine.
received on November 1st, a resolution from the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners, resolution supporting the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians Casino in Muskegon County. That was all.
Thank you. We'll need to get a briefing on the 2022 budget. That involves a public hearing. So looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting and convene the public hearing.
So moved.
Support.
For that, let's do a roll call, and to specify, it's for purposes of reviewing the 2022 budget, also to comply with truth and taxation requirements, which are statutory. So if the motion and support are still good, we'll have the clerk call the roll.
Yes.
All right.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Freeling,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Borat,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Yarborough, Elliott.
Yes. Okay, so we are now in the public hearing, and Doug, you want to tee us off?
Good morning, everyone.
What did I just vote yes for?
We're here to talk to you today with regard to the 2022 budget that has been proposed in accordance with the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, and specifically Section 141.3 or 434. We are presenting a budget for your consideration. And we have technical difficulty.
There we go.
Okay.
I was gonna say, you can have my book.
Yeah, no. In front of you is a thick book, probably too many pages, but yet we tried to provide as complete information as we can for your consideration. We're going to go through a short presentation talking about some of the highlights as it would be related to this budget. And if you have questions, please interject in the process. The 2022 budget for primary government that's being presented for your review and adoption reflects $173.163 million of revenues and $180,791,000 of expenditures. It also shows a use of fund balance of $7.6 million. When we put the budget together last year, it was somewhere right around $10 million use of fund balance, just to give you an idea. That is for primary government. Then there are the component units, but our purpose here today is to talk about primary government. Okay. The next page here is from page 5 of the annual budget. What it shows is that the general fund will use $1,255,000. The special revenue funds all combined will use right around $5 million. There's a little bit there for capital projects and internal service funds. Overall, again, it's 7.6 almost $7.7 million. Okay? This gives you an idea from a revenue trend perspective of what's going on here. You will see that back in 2017, going from 17 to 18, that's when we brought in the road department as a special revenue fund rather than being a component unit. What we see here, and I'm excluding some things because of the movement back and forth of funds that occur. But what you're going to see here is $147,193,000 as being the revenues, an increase of $7.4 million or 5.3%. Property taxes, intergovernmental revenue, and other revenue make up the majority share of the increases, or majority share, I'm sorry, of the revenues, around 89%. Okay, revenue growth is really led by the intergovernmental revenue of $3.7 million. Tax grows as well, about $2.1 million. State revenue sharing based upon the state guidance gives us another $900,000. And then other revenues increase about $797,000. If you go into the book, which I've given you the pages here, should you want to look or read further, the information or the breakdown of those items is listed down at the bottom of this. So pages 9 and 10 or page 11 and so forth, where we provide additional information about that. Okay? Taxes. Tax growth is driven by a change in the taxable values. The chart below gives us a look at what's going on with the taxable values over time. You can see here that the state equalized values increase about $319 million or 3.1%. That translates to taxable values of $8.497 billion, which is an increase of 3%. And then your millage rates, because of the Headley impact, roll back slightly, and we've estimated that at being about a $48,000 impact. So it's not material impact. This is the section from the resolution that will be going before you next week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks from now to be passed. It shows the revenue rates, I'm sorry, the millage rates for each of the individual millages. For example, general operating at 4.7680 mills. And so forth. So you can see there with the parks and with your 911 and so forth. Yes.
All 5 of those millages, those are voted on by the people, correct?
911, I'm sorry. Parks is not. Parks you vote on.
All the rest of them are?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. A 10-year history of those millage rates is provided for you in this publication that we have on page 129. It'll show it over the course of time. Taxable revenues, therefore, increase about $2.116 million. That's about 36.4% of primary government's revenue. And it's at $53 million. And you can see right there that most of that is related just to the current millage or the current tax collection alone. Let's see, got to hit the right button. Intergovernmental revenue is budgeted at $57 million, a little more than that, and is about 39% of the primary government revenue. I've highlighted some items down here below. Obviously, it's going up around $4.6 million. County road fund is $1.1 million of that. Indigent Defense Fund kicks in there. Health Department kicks in there. It's worth also noting that the ARPA funds are only recognized in the amount of $800,000 of the 29 million because of revenue recognition. We need to, in essence, we don't recognize that revenue until such time as we're ready to spend. Okay. Other revenues at $19.8 million or 13.5% of primary government revenue. Their items to be highlighted would have to do with MMRMA. We have a $1 million reimbursement or refund in there, included in the budget. It was also in the 2021 budget. Internal service funds are budgeted at $16,354,000 and have to do with the benefit reimbursements coming from county from the county and employees for their health, basically their health benefits. Also note that the Ox Creek grant has $524,000 and as an in-kind donation in there as well. Okay. Expenditures for primary government, and again, I'm excluding those interfund activities. Also, restitution distributions is budgeted at $154.822 million, which is an increase of $4,881,000 or 3.3%. Again, you can see going from 17 to 18, it jumps up quite a bit, and that again has to do with the incorporation of the road department.
14.
Salaries and wages, benefit costs, road construction costs, and internal services benefit payments. And I'm going to throw contractual and professional services make up the majority share at 82% of the expenses for 2022. Expenditure growth is really led by personnel costs of $2,893,000. We have some professional and contractual services in there at $1,539,000. We have some capital outlay growth as well, $1,218,000, and then some other items for around $1,005,000. It's worth noting that road construction services, and materials, do decline on a year-over-year basis about $1,005,000. So it's ramping down a little bit budgetarily. And that the internal service benefit payments are also decreasing. So the outflow of funds for that are decreasing about $693,000. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, Doug. Can you clarify for me on this where it talks about road construction and roads? That's Public Act 51 money. How does that impact our budget? Don't they have their own Public Act 51 money income? It's not our. When I say ours,
we're talking about primary. We're talking about primary government. The road department is a special revenue fund of primary government.
It's all together.
It's all together. We're talking all together here today, right now.
They have their own budget, but it's encompassed.
We'll touch on that in a little bit more in just a minute, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So personnel expenses are budgeted at $78.4 million. That's about 50.7% of our overall budget. Budgeted expenditures. This gives you an idea on a year-over-year basis, and I noticed that I put one year up there incorrectly. It should say the 2022 budget reflects 805.6 full-time equivalent employees. That's up 16.2 from the 2021 budget and 30.6 from the 2020 budget. I've tried to list in here for you where those are happening. If you go to page 124 through 127, you can get a lot more detail around that. You can see specific departments that are impacted. Personnel costs then are budgeted to increase, again, $2.893 million or 3.8%. Salaries and wages, $1,687,000, and that's really related to compensation changes and additional personnel that are listed on the FTE chart. Benefits costs also go up an equivalent percentage as it would relate to health insurance, pension, OPEB, and so forth. To give you an idea, this is where we are funded on pension fund through the end of last year. We are right now 67.6% funded. And we have an actuarially accrued liability of $282 million and change. The OPEB fund is 49.8% funded. Okay. This is a shot of just the general fund alone. We'll talk about a couple funds here quickly if we can, and if you have additional questions, I'd be happy to answer. The general fund, it reflects a budget with sources of funds of $65,540,000, uses of $66.795 million, and then a use of fund balance of $1,255,000. Even with that use of fund balance, we estimate at the end of 2022, the fund balance will be 39% of expenditures. If you recall, policy is between 20 and 40. Mm-hmm. So we felt comfortable with where this would end. I've got a whole bunch of items here, which I'm not going to touch on all of them right now, related to the general fund is for highlights with regard to taxes and state revenue sharing and so forth. If you want me to touch on those, I'd be happy to, but understand that going through the general fund, which wasn't there a year ago, are the GASB, it's related GASB 84, restitution, collections, and distributions. And we budgeted around $920,000 that goes through the county for that. And those, basically the revenue and expenditures offset. Okay, again, list of items to consider from the expenditure standpoint, just trying to highlight some things for you so that you can try to dial through this a little bit. Contingency is budgeted at $1 million. That's a decrease of about $300,000 from the 2021 budget. I've listed here for you the capital outlay for the general fund. And there is no draw of delinquent tax revolving fund that we've previously built into the budget. And historically, we would build around $1.3 million in. Okay. County road fund, which comes back to the conversation a minute ago. The county road fund, which is rolled up into that overall number that we were talking about earlier, has a source of funds of $27,982,000, uses of a little over $30 million, and then a decrease in fund balance of $2,697,000. Also listed on page 38 is a list of capital outlay that they are going to have for 2022 of around $2.9 million. $911 operational fund, which is Caitlin's basically, has a budgeted source of a little over $5 million, a use of $6 million, and then a decrease of around $932,000. And we estimate at the end of 2022, they will have about 28% in their fund balance of their percent of expenditures. So public safety, this is one I have a little more heartburn with, and it has to do with the fact that their fund balance is eroding. That it has sources of funds of $3 million, uses of funds of almost $3.4 million, and a decrease in fund balance of $340,000, which then leaves, based upon the 2021 amended budget plus the 2022, it leaves us with $84,000 in fund balance. Senior Citizens Fund, which is another major fund. Basically, we budgeted for sources of funds of $2,587,000, and after reduction for audit costs and the 1% administrative fee, it's an average of 360,000 plus going to each senior center. There's a list of several different funds here that, again, I'm highlighting, and I'm not going to touch on all of them at the present time unless you really want me to. Suffice it to say that the bottom one, CARES Act, that has to do with that ARPA money. That's where that ARPA money is sitting right now. Will continue to sit until such time as it's determined the appropriate qualified spending. We have $800,000. Again, we have $800,000 that we have budgeted for a use of those funds in 2022. Okay. Capital projects funds are shown in your book on page 85 and 86. And they reflect an appropriation from the delinquent tax revolving fund of $1,899,000 and a spending of $2,522,000. That's based upon the submissions that came to us and we were able to prioritize and come up with. The health insurance fund also has I would highlight that it has a budgeted appropriation for 2021 of $1 million from the delinquent tax revolving fund, and that it would be recommended that if there's anything available at the end of 21 from the general fund that's unexpended, that a year-end appropriation be made to increase the fund balance of this fund. I also say the same thing with regard to the child care fund. Okay. And the last one that I really want to talk about is the delinquent tax revolving fund. And at the end of 2022, we have an estimated net position of a little over $28 million. Of this, we're saying about 7.2 is available for immediate use. The remaining balance of $20 million has either been committed as advances to other funds. We're kind of setting aside as reserving for the outstanding notes payable for that fund, or reserved per the general fund for the general fund expenditures, which is 20% of the, oh boy, I just tied myself up in a knot, sorry. Policy is that we will hold in this fund 20% of the general fund expenditures. Okay. In essence, for this fund, any gains that occur in 2022 are then part of the appropriation that's going for capital expenditures. So the net gain for the fund on a year-over-year basis is zero. And with that, I'm going to kind of wind this up, and this is our proposal to you that we're presenting. Has a source of revenues, or a source of funds with revenues of $148,113,604. Uses of funds of $155,742,223, and a change in the net fund balance or net position of $7,628,000. With that, I'll open up to any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So of the 7.6 use of fund balance, the 7.6, is the majority of that then from the special revenue sources, their fund balances?
$5 million comes from special revenue funds.
So of the general fund balance?
Of the general fund balance, $1,255,000.
Okay.
I can take you back there if you would like, but.
Just wanted to be clear on it.
Yeah.
And are the personnel costs, the new ratified contracts included in the personnel line?
Not yet.
So
Not yet.
we've got roads settled. We'll have the large unit shooting for January. Sorry, I was speaking, Mike. So we're in negotiations with the large unit now. We hope to have that settled sometime in January. an amendment will have to occur to address those contracts. Further, we're going through the facility study. We're going through strategic planning on the use of ARPA funding. It's a safe bet. There will be multiple amendments as we start targeting projects for the use of the ARPA funds.
Basically, other than the $800,000 that we built in, there's no other use of ARPA funds in 2022.
And just to explain that philosophy, we tried with all of the departments that if there were life safety issues on any of their facilities, their buildings, et cetera, to put those into the budget. However, we're going through a facilities master planning process, and we've asked people to just be respectful of that and hold any building improvements, any building maintenance until that study is completed, with the caution that if you've got a roof that's leaking, if you've got boilers failing, of course, bring those forward, but things that can wait 6 to 12 months, we've asked them just to hold and wait.
Ma'am.
Doug, just a quick question. I know you mentioned about the public safety fund balance.
Yes.
And how that's been depleted. I know your recommendation is if at the end of this fiscal year, we have money to be appropriated to have that go to the health fund, health insurance fund?
From the general fund.
From the general fund.
From the general fund.
Correct.
If we have any leftover funds that have already been appropriated for 2021, just like we do every year, we would come to you with a recommendation.
Right.
And one of the couple things that I would recommend are looking at the child care fund balance.
Right.
As well as the health insurance fund balance.
Right. My question to you, I'm sorry, Bob, hold on, I'll give you your microphone back in a moment. My question to you is with regards to public safety, what should we be aware of moving forward into fiscal year 2023 and planning? I know that's crazy to say, but what should we be aware of as a board to help to sort of stop that flow? If you don't have an answer, that's okay.
I don't know that I have an answer right now. I do know that somewhere along the line, the millage will come up. I know, I'm trying to think of when the sheriff's in here, but when that millage is when it comes up for renewal.
Sure.
The question becomes, is that appropriate to change that millage rate or not?
Right.
Are there other things that we can do to mitigate some of the costs?
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that statement, there are some big ticket items that the sheriff's office will be looking to acquire. One thing that hit the newspaper was their mobile command unit.
Yeah.
Right.
That is a high dollar piece of equipment. It's one that has a long lead time, and it also has a very long depreciation cycle. As we look to the upcoming year, that's one that we'll be working with through the ARPA process to determine whether or not that's an eligible purchase using ARPA funds as opposed to drawing it down any further.
Right.
Gotcha.
That particular item is not included in this budget at this point. Neither is, we need to do something with one of our boats. And that is not in here either. We're still seeking, how we're gonna fund that.
Yes, sir.
Doug, with the respects to the labor costs, so those are budgeted positions, not necessarily adjusted for filled positions? So
It is, you are correct. You are correct. We typically see, for example, I'll use a general fund. We typically see each year a certain percentage of, I'll use the term breakage, because of the open positions. It can amount anywhere from $1 million to $2 million in breakage we will see. Just keep in mind that that's possible that could happen. That's not built into this. What's built in here is are all positions fully funded.
And you also budget at full benefit costs for each of the positions. So,
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mac. Addressing the 911 question, we've discussed that at the 911 board meetings. Caitlin has talked to us about the shortfalls and possibly
reinstituting some fees on cell phones that we used to and then discontinued because of other funding. So we have discussed that, and hopefully we will have a plan to avoid that, so the fund balance doesn't go to zero.
All right, any other questions from around the horseshoe here? If not, even though it's not stated on the agenda, public comments are part of any public hearing. And these would be comments about the 2022 budget. If anyone has anything they would like to ask or anything they would like to say in reference to the 2022 budget, this would be the time to do so. If you do, just come on up and say your name and what political unit you live in, city, village, township. Okay, there hasn't been much of a line that has assembled, so.
Everybody's so excited about it.
Right. Okay, then is there a motion to conclude the public hearing and go back into our regular session?
So moved.
Moved by Scott, supported by Meeks. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Kern,
Yes.
Kern, Freeling,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Borath,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes. All right, we're back in regular session. Ben, thank you. Doug, thank you. Next thing on the agenda is public comments regarding resolutions. That would be the resolutions that are listed on the first page and the back side of that page of the agenda. If anyone has anything they would like to share, just come on up, same protocol, name and where you're from. Don't provide your street address. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Robert Donarski from Lincoln Township. Just wanted to hear more about the, I think it was $24,000 in change that was being appropriated for COVID testing for the schools. I wonder if there's some comment on that we can hear about, please?
There will be.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
James Kovach. Many people know me as Jamie Kovach. I'm from St. Joseph Township. I am also here to listen and discuss the 24,000 and some odd cents that's going to be spent on COVID testing.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Matt Belcher, Stevensville. Resolution P2111346, agreement with RESA. Please oppose the agreement with RESA and the testing on students being pushed by them and the health department. Children are the least likely to catch COVID, become severely ill, be hospitalized, or die from COVID. Children don't have the same capacity to carry the virus as adults because they are not developed enough to hold it in their mucous membranes. Kids have a natural protection against COVID. And never before have we tested the healthy or asymptomatic like this. No precedent exists. There is no scientific basis to support testing students. There is no medical justification. Testing students is both scientifically and medically unnecessary. In addition, these tests are not without risk and not harmless. They contain ethylene oxide. This is carcinogenic. It is prohibited in Europe in food production. These tests contain more than 6 times the allowable level. Even far lower levels cause cancer. There have been recalls on items that contain lower levels than what's on the swab. The tests also contain graphene oxide. There is no time to talk about graphene oxide. It is horrifying. When a swab is done, microscopic bits come off and remain lodged in the flesh. Repeated tests only increase exposure. For the sake of students' health, the Board of Commissioners should be resolving to reduce the testing of students in schools, not increase them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Amy Foster, Lincoln Township. I just want to make sure you're fully explaining, because the agenda was very vague. Like, what is this testing about? Is it for people that are contacts? Is it to avoid quarantines? Anytime the government's throwing money at something and people are getting money to justify their jobs, bad things can happen, and there are usually unforeseen consequences. So I really want you guys to look at it, not just, oh, it was there yesterday, and vote on it. It needs to be looked at carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Jennifer Mayo Fujawa, Lincoln Township. I'm kind of reiterating what a few other people have already said, but I want to say that schools are for teaching. They're not for being extensions of the industrial medical complex. We're really dealing with a slippery slope at this point in time, and I've been predicting that the things that are happening now would happen a year and a half ago. We are now at a point of essentially discussing the merger of healthcare and public education. Never mind that this is not appropriate now, and it has never been appropriate because it sets a very dangerous precedent where the right to an education is now tied with coercion to make decisions for children's bodies that parents would often not make of their own volition. The problem with partnering with the Berrien County Health Department to bring COVID testing into the schools is multifaceted, but my main issue here with the entire COVID scenario is that we're being reactive rather than proactive. If the department is going to have health in its name, it needs to actually be cultivating health. If we ask the wrong questions, we'll get the wrong answers, and both our federal and state politicians, as well as local leaders, continue to ask the wrong questions. If we're going to be implementing the arbitrary PCR test inside of schools, which was never intended to be used as a diagnostic tool and is not a standardized test anyway, and can be manipulated to produce whatever results the governing agencies wish to see just by adjusting the cycle thresholds that are run, why are we not also implementing vitamin D clinics for parents to opt into, given that we know that vitamin D levels are one of the biggest predictors of asymptomatic cases versus those who are critically ill in hospital ICUs? How many lives and healthcare dollars would we be saving just by distributing vitamin D supplements and telling people to spend time outdoors in the sun, to the extent that we've explained supplements and telling people to spend
2 minutes.
All right. Just to clarify, 96.82% of those who were admitted to the ICU had vitamin D deficiency versus 32% who did not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Robin Graffinius. I'm from Lincoln Township, and I agree with all of them, but I just want to make it really simple. This is for the parents to decide. This isn't to happen in the school. This isn't for the health department to come into the schools and have anything to do with. So I am against any funding for this. And I really hope that you would use common sense and your ability as parents when your children were small, if they're no longer, or grandchildren, or however that affects you. That's your decision, as it is mine.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Cynthia Poor from Coloma Township, and I agree with everything that's been said about the 24,000 COVID testing in the school.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. If that concludes public comments on resolutions, we'll go to the consent calendar. As I mentioned to the first gentleman who spoke, we have been giving this consideration and had some discussion just informally earlier in the day. And there are still some questions that need to be answered. At least I'm only speaking for myself at this moment. But wondering about the contact tracing component of this, wondering about the quarantine aspects? And is there a quarantine timeline in terms of days that is being passed through CDC to MDHHS or SS? HS. I never get that right. MDHHS. Down to the county health departments as a conduit to the schools. It looks like there might be. And if so, is that in any way compelling schools to mask children to minimize or reduce quarantine timelines? Answers to those questions, at least from my perspective, aren't yet clarified. So there's 11 other folks around here who have a vote. Before we get to the consent calendar, if anyone has similar concerns, this would be the time to share those. And if we need to adjust the consent calendar, we need to pull anything for scrutiny or table while we're waiting for additional information to be assembled, I would ask that we do that now.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to table P2111346. The county does not need to be involved in parental affairs, in my opinion.
All right, before we get to asking for a support for that, understand under our protocol, a motion to table supersedes and is voted on without discussion. So I only put that out there because if anyone wanted to have any further discussion or expression of concern, you would need to do it before we act on the motion to table, because otherwise you can't. So while that's pending and before it's seconded, does anyone have anything else they wish to share in reference to the resolution ending in 346?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So with tabling that, and I guess in that is an indirect suggestion that we don't act on that particular resolution. Didn't we accept the funding from the state to do testing, and with us not contracting with Barry and Risa, are we in a way rejecting that money, or where does that funding, what do we do with that money?
So by tabling this, we would not be able to proceed with any type of contract arrangement. The funds would be essentially a drawdown from state coffers. So if we are not doing the contract, we would then not be drawing down those funds. The funds would essentially just be a neutral issue. Should the state wish to then go direct to RISA, that would be a decision for the state. By tabling it, you're not taking any formal action. If there's a desire by the board to say yes, the board should say yes. If there's a desire to say no, then that's something that at some point the board would need to do. By tabling it, you're just pausing the conversation. To respond to your direct question, it is a drawdown account, so we have not taken possession of the dollars. If we table it, we would not take possession of those dollars until we have some type of vote by the Board of Commissioners on the use of the dollars. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, and I guess I'm fine with tabling this resolution so we can get clarity, because I know there's, some distrust in the community and the health department or the health community. And I want to make sure that we as commissioners are doing our job to kind of act as that bridge between the community and the health community, because there needs to be some level of trust and some level of community and commitment to ensuring the safety of the residents of Marion County. So thank you for that, Brian.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with what you're saying, in principle, and I agree with potentially the table. However, if one of the changes that was made to the resolution based on our discussions from last week to this week, was that a lot of those things are now removed, contact tracing, all of those things from the resolution, that they can't do it. We also added in that it had to be with parental consent. So my question is if there's a violation of any parental consent, does that mean the money gets pulled and the resolution is null and void?
Well, and that's one more reason to try to bring this into focus, because heard enough from various folks around this table about the concerns about, is there contact tracing, or is that money being used for testing? Is CDC a driver in this process through their guidelines, which are somehow mutating as they come through MDHHS and down here and then out to the schools, so that is it creating a backdoor mask mandate in the process? And individually, I'd like to know, is that what's happening? If it is, I don't want to be part of that. But if there's an explanation, I'd like to have it. And I would rather be deliberate in this approach than simply approve it and say, well, we'll figure it out later. They do that in Congress. I don't want to take that approach. So, so that's my reason for wanting to step on the brake. But I'm one vote. You all have to decide, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Turned it on for me. So I appreciate the time to discuss this, because I do have reservations with regards to this. I look at the numbers that we've been receiving from the health department as it pertains to our school districts. Those that have contracted and tested positive for COVID and been quarantined in the last week has significantly gone down. Now, I don't know for this week, but it lends me to pause and go, why are we ramping up mitigation efforts when we just had the approval through the FDA for vaccinations 5 through 11? Those numbers could be impacting what we're having for quarantining. But then also, as a parent myself, I think it's my duty to go out if my child has been a close contact or has symptoms, to go and have them tested. And then looking further into this funding, realizing that this plan from the state was adopted in April of 2021, and it was to be incorporated in the back to learn or ready to learn, return to learn plan for schools. There we go. And yet it was to encourage in-person instruction and to allow it as a tool for those school districts if they incorporated it into their own ready to learn plan. And I don't know if there are any of those school districts within Berrien County that have that incorporated. And that was a question that I've asked from staff that I've yet to receive that answer on.
Right. I understand that, and we talked about that as well.
Yes. And so I have reservations, and I appreciate the opportunity to table it, get some answers to this, because I'm not comfortable moving this forward. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just very quickly, I'm fine if a table is seconded and voted on, but I'm also fine with pulling the resolution and voting on it at this point in time. And I'll be very candid about it. The reservations, I don't think that time will clear up in my mind, and I'm perfectly comfortable right now voting no now at this point in time. But I'm comfortable with the rest of the board if you guys want to table and wait for that. But I'm also fine with pulling the resolution and voting on it at this point in time. I just feel that the questions, I don't know that they'll be answered thoroughly, but I'm at peace if that's what you think you want. But I'm comfortable voting on it at this point in time too. So.
Okay. Bob, and then
Just, I suppose, a point of a reminder. So we first considered this resolution last week. And then I personally spent a great deal of time responding to several questions from the commissioners. Spent time with the health department responding to your questions. So it is a bit frustrating that you've had the opportunity to consider this resolution. You've had an opportunity to ask your questions. You've been given responses to those. And now we're back into the same question. Well, we're not really sure about this. So I tend to feel or tend to agree with Commissioner Hinkleman that if you want to spend more time researching this, then yes, that can be done. The question is, at the end of that research, will you still take a vote on this resolution? And if the answer is, well, no, we really don't want to do that, then let's just put this issue to rest now and let the state of Michigan decide what course of action that they want to take. The second is that in the grant award that the county accepted, there was also money for support of lead testing services in Benton Harbor. And so if indeed we're going to not want the money from the state of Michigan, then that issue will need to be clarified with the state of Michigan.
To members of the board, just to echo the past two commissioners, this is something that are essentially stuck in limbo. It's obvious that there is a growing majority that is opposed to the resolution. It's something that was tabled a week ago. Tabling again, all you're doing is just continuing to kick this can down the road. If the board does not want to see it go through, or a majority of the board, my recommendation would be to just vote it up or vote it down today. I've reached out to the leadership at RISA and told them that I could not predict how today would go, but I also made clear that my advice to them was start a conversation with the state. If this is something that they're wanting to do, then they should be having those conversations. Our role in this is acting as a fiduciary, accepting the grant dollars, passing them through. To jump back to Commissioner Werfel's comments about if activities were to occur that are outside of our authorizing resolution, what happens? I think that's a really valid question. And our ability to monitor these various testing sites, we just don't have the horsepower to do that. So the advice that I would offer echoes Commissioner Hinkleman, Commissioner Harrison. If this is something that you just fundamentally are not comfortable with, then just vote no on it.
yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been talking to one of the schools, and today they have 300 students out quarantined, and that's a 1,300 class size. He is looking. He called to find out if there's anything he can do, because he says every day it's a chaos and a madhouse, and they're looking for answers. Now, and I was against this at first, but now that it's parents' approval, it is an option for a parent to get their kid back in school, and that's what his concern. He wants to get kids back in school almost immediately, as opposed to quarantine them, taking them out of school for 10 days. He had a student that he out for 10 days. He just got back in. The next day, he had to stay out another 10 days. And he says, this just keeps going on and on. This way, and the parents up to their option, if they get them tested or not. This will give them an option to get it tested, not have to take them out of school, take time off of work, go to a test site, get it tested, and maybe get them back in 2 or 3 days. It can be done all in one day. And that's what the health board is trying to do, is make it easier. And like I said, it's up to the parents, 100%. I am fine with tabling it until you get the answers, but this principal is looking for an answer. He doesn't know what to do anymore.
So just to clarify, this resolution basically says that there can be rapid testing, not PCR testing, but rapid testing with parental consent. So parents can opt out or they cannot consent to the testing of their child.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, my understanding is that they can't do any medical procedures without parents' approval whatsoever.
Okay, I just wanted to get an understanding on that.
Terry, then Ezra.
The only thing that I want to add on that is one of the questions I had was, where does the information reside once the testing is done? And I am told that it resides with the DHHS, the state level, for the testing results. And that causes me to have some reservation.
Ezra.
I would gladly untable this and have a vote today. I'm going to be a no vote on this, and I think that one of the biggest things that I have a problem with is not so much the information, is we all took an oath to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Michigan. We, as a county board, have no right getting into parental decisions on medical issues with their children. That's what this has to do with. It has nothing to do with whether the parents are allowed to say, yes, test my children, whether they're not allowed to. It is not this board's responsibility. Our biggest responsibility is the fiscal issues dealing with the county. Now, this has to do with fiscal issues. The only reason I would be susceptible to not vote on it today, to table it, is, and to keep it on a table, is to find out whether or not what happens to the money. Now, if we vote this down, nobody's told me yet, what happens to that money then? Do they take a portion of it for the lead and then this portion here, and then they send that back to the state, and then RISA could apply, or anybody could apply for that grant funding money?
It's not that much.
Right, and I don't know, nobody has even said that. That's why I was going to table it. But I'm more than happy to take the table off and take a full vote on it right now.
Anyone else? If there's no reasonable likelihood that we're going to be able to get more information than we have presently, addressing those questions, including, for me anyway, the extent to which this quarantine, how long it is, how many days, is coming down from on high. And then the application of it apparently is different depending on your county, because the Edwardsburg Public Schools, as I understand it, aren't doing it the same as, say, Lakeshore. And that begs the question. I'm troubled by that. So, Commissioner Scott, you've got a motion pending. What's your pleasure? Are you seeking a support, or are you wishing to withdraw and pull 346 for individual consideration off of the consent calendar?
Yes, I'm going to pull my motion for table, and I want to pull P2111-346 for a separate vote, separate from approving the consent calendar.
All right. And thank you. And that does not need a vote. That doesn't need to be supported. So that is pulled. We will first deal with the consent calendar, and then we will deal with 346. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar minus the resolution ending in 346? Is there support?
I'll support.
Moved by Henkelman, supported by Curran. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Freeling.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hinkelman.
Yes.
Majerick.
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Volrod.
Yes.
Excuse me. Werfel.
Yes.
Yarborough.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes. Is there a motion to bring forward the resolution ending in 346?
So moved.
Is there support? Moved by Scott, supported by Volrath. Sorry. Is there any discussion beyond that which has already occurred? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman,
No?
Majerick,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
No.
Volrath,
No.
Werfel,
No.
Yarborough,
No.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
No.
Freeling,
No.
Elliott.
No. The resolution fails by a vote of 8-4. Next item. Board appointments, Bob.
So the PHSC committee reviewed reappointments to the Parks Commission, and we brought forward to you James Bednar and Anthony Corrigan for reappointment. Dr. Bednar went on the Parks Board in 2019, and Mr. Corrigan went on in 94. Both have attended all seven meetings of the Parks Board in the last year. And so we moved those two individuals forward for reappointment.
Is there any discussion, any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
Both men are excellent men that I've served on the board with this year. However, consistent with my concern last week, when one has been on since 1994, I think it should be open to the public to apply so that it is open for other people in that case when it's been more than 10 years.
Anything else on that? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I too am a member of the Parks Board, and I thank you for your observation, Commissioner Werfel. I think that's something that needs to go to the Policy Committee, because it has been our practice that when a person attends well and, has no absences and all of that, and are involved, that if they want to, they continue. So perhaps you want to look at with a policy to make a limit of years, and then it'll go out to the public or whatever. That's my thought that I want to say what we've been doing.
Any other comments? I have one. I appreciate the interest in bringing in new folks. I would prefer to balance that with the benefit of having some institutional memory on various organizations. Parks Board is one in particular where we benefit from having that institutional memory, the historic perspective. If someone isn't showing up, I wouldn't wait 10 years to make the switch. But I'm hoping we can achieve a balance where some folks will say, I'm going to need more free time for other things. It's not like we pay them to do this. These folks donate their time. And I'm grateful that we have good people serving on so many different county boards for not even a donut and coffee. Well, we might at Christmas, but they don't get anything really. So just keeping that in mind. Sir, did you have something, Don?
No.
Okay. All right then. As to those appointments, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We good? Is that it for PHS?
For board appointments.
Yes. All right, then since you're warmed up, we'll go to committee reports.
So we met this morning. We had a very interesting presentation on veteran services from Lee Law, our director. And so something that he said I think is fascinating, that in the last year, over $74 million has been provided to residents of Berrien County from veterans benefits. of which 40 million are pension benefits. And so that is a very significant number. And so we went into great detail regarding the services that they provide. We also heard a presentation from our county clerk regarding some proposed staffing changes, and so we did approve those. We talked about the aforementioned RISA contract, and then also Jill Adams currently serves as a representative on the Solid Waste Consortium, and there was some discussion about changing that out, but given some potential changes in that consortium, the sense is to leave her in that position for the short run. So that would, I believe, conclude my report.
Questions for PHS?
Mac, just a statement on what you said about the consortium. I've been a member since I've been on the board. And right now, we have our next meeting on November 17th. And it's a 7-county board that sits on the consortium. And it appears that it is no longer meeting its mission statement or its vision. So as board members, as commissioners on that board, it'll be brought up on the 17th of November, and I'll report back on what it looks like. We're probably just going to dissolve the consortium.
Okay. Anything else for PHS? If not, let's do admin, Jim, if that's all right.
Yes, thank you, Mac. We had our meeting this morning in the Otto Grau room, and our first guest was Sheriff Bailey, and Commissioner Volrath would like to report out on that.
Well, we'll keep this report short because you all should have got an email yesterday afternoon from Peggy with a big report in it. But one of the sheriff's main concerns right now, he's got his nursing staff that has to be manned 24 hours a day, and he just lost his head nurse. And once again, it's because of pay, low pay, and the situation in the world with jobs and things. People are offering more money other places and people are leaving. So that's a big concern right now because I know nurses are in short supply like everything else. So he's very concerned about that, and we'll probably have to have some discussions about a little more pay for these nurses that we have to keep there. They're vital to keeping the jail open. The number of complaints worked in October, 1,294. Tickets issued, 206, and they arrested 118 people. And the rest of the stats are in your computer. Read them at your leisure. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. We're going to have some resolutions for you the next time we get together. 3 of the resolutions are coming from the court, and the ones ending in 1355 is to accept grant funding in the amount of $182,000, and that's for the Michigan Swift and Sure Sanctions Program. Resolution ending in 1356 is to accept $149,622 for the Mental Health Court Program. And ending in 1357, 1358 is to accept grant funds in the amount of $40,000, and that is for the Michigan Drug Court. We also have a resolution ending in 1354. This is animal control. They want to apply for a $5,000 grant reimbursement for the spay-neuter program. And let's see, 1357 is to apply to the Michigan Court Administrative Offices for $150,000 for COVID reimbursement funding. So those 3 are from the court. 54 is from animal control, and it seems like I got one more in here. No, that's it. Any questions on those? Okay, and then I understand that Dan Fetty was in and to all the committees and talked to them about the process and procedure for the solid waste expansion of the Southeast Marion County landfill down in Buchanan. So he was explained it to, we asked questions from him. The chairman and the county administrator were in to see us. We talked about the Parker Street Dam site, the 50 acres or so down there that we are going to partner with Niles City on and possibly house one of the road department garages. And again, Brian kind of gave us an update that they're still working on the overall scope of that. We had asked for something a little more detailed on where the new sites are going to be, which old sites are going to be eliminated, and we haven't got that yet. They're still working on that. And then also he brought us up to date on all the road department garages locations and what they possibly are going to look like in the future. But that's part of that facility study. And that's our report.
Any questions for admin? Yes, sir.
No question, just a comment. Finance wasn't worthy of Mr. Fetty today. Never showed.
Oh, you didn't get there?
No, just wanted to clarify.
So just to
We
also
weren't
to clarify,
important
he didn't come to the PHSC.
He didn't?
either, so
Oh, I thought he came
I'm
to
not sure
everybody.
where he went.
And,
You said something about not wanting to drag you out any longer than you
Right.
normally are.
yeah. But he didn't go to PHSC also, so it was just an admit deal.
Duly noted, Commissioner, thank you.
Well, admin does have oversight for solid waste plan. While on that subject, is it okay with everyone if I sign a letter of consistency for that expansion of that? I think it's the fourth cell down at Southeast Berrien.
Please do.
Yeah, please do.
All right.
You have our
Okay.
full support on that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. I wouldn't do it otherwise. So, right. Okay. Well, if that's it for admin, then Madam Chair of Finance, what say you?
Thank you. We had a visit from our chairperson, Elliot, and our administrator, Dissette. And we just passed it, the resolution A2111353 regarding the Motorola contract. And we talked about that, and Administrator Dissette explained to us it was the resolution today so that we could lock these in. So many things you have to order as soon as you can so that it can happen. And we did receive $5 million from the state of Michigan so that we can standardize all over Berrien County, our radios and contacts and the towers and all the things that need to happen. And then we had a number of waivers and work that we do. And I'd like to ask if Commissioner Ezra Scott would explain to us the waiver request from Engineer Kevin Stack of the Road Department.
We had a lot of waivers today. Road waivers for the road department included buying 4 tractors with boom mowers and fail mowers, John Deere 4-wheel drives, and also because we're purchasing quite a bit of that equipment, $633,000 worth of equipment. John Deere is graciously going to throw in the diagnostic tool so that we can use it on our computers out there so we can find out what the codes are. I would imagine once you spend a little bit of money, you can do that. The other thing that we're buying is 2 11-foot snow plows. We have 2 now, so what'll end up happening is we'll have 1 for each of the garages. These snow plows also work on the trucks as well as the front end loaders. We're going to purchase 2 batwing mowers for $43,000. They're single side mowers that'll fit on the vehicles that we already have or the equipment we already have at the road department. And then we're purchasing $484,000 a vac truck. All of these things were done through Sourcewell or My Deal. So that's why they were going out to single source, because we were able to check on those and find out, and they weren't going out to bidding per se, which we are allowed to do because we're always checking the price. This vac truck is something that you've seen before on the other places. The sanitary districts have them. It's got the big hose on there in the front, but we need one for cleaning our culverts and things like that. And for years, we've been using the drain department's one, but it seems that now the drain department is using theirs a lot more than they did before. So when we need it for the road department, we need it. So we're just gonna buy our own. The next thing we approved on a waiver was for Orbis. They're a historical preservation company out of South Bend. They're archaeologists, and this is for the road department. There are 3 federal projects that we're involved in right now, and we've used this company before, and they'll go out and they'll do to see whether or not they've found anything, Indian burial grounds, moccasins, I don't know, that's what I brought up. I just making that up, but it sounded real. And do that before any of the projects for the road department happens, so that way we don't run into a problem. Also, we approved a waiver for the Red Arrow Highway, several portions. One was through Whiteman, one was through Abbenmarsh. The Whiteman one, I believe it was a $99,000 grant that we got, and the total project was $150,000. And New Buffalo Township is picking up that difference between the 99, so the cost of the county is 0. Also, the Abbenmarsh one is for, which has to do with in Chickamine Township, which is the linear path. That I believe was 84,000, and that's going to be picked up by the grant and the Chickamine Township. Once again, I don't believe that's any cost to us as the county. And then the last one we did was a very important one. We had a waiver for the sheriff's department for duty weapons and ammunition. And we went with the waiver for one company because, to be honest with you, they're the only company that has the stuff right now. And that's where we're running into a lot in the finance department, a lot of issues like that also. Madam Chair, that is my report.
Thank you very much.
Question? May I ask a question before you move on?
Yes.
And I think this goes to Brian. Everything that he just talked about, the mowers and the plows and everything, is that on our equipment list that you just provided to the admin committee?
Not yet, but
Okay, what they're purchasing now is not on the equipment list you just sent us.
This is 2022 budgeted stuff, but we have to order it now and get in the queue if we don't.
Once it arrives, we'll update the equipment list.
Yeah.
And reshare.
Okay, so just the mere fact that we ordered it and it will be coming in eventually.
Yeah.
Okay. Then can we get an update on what's that gonna replace off the current list?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
But they're not gonna accept any of this stuff until 2022. It's because it'll come out of the 2022 budget, because otherwise it throws the auditors into flux.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Let me just say one more thing too. This would be a question for you, Brian. On that waiver list, if everybody has access to that, if you see it, the budgeted amount for that equipment is always, and I don't know if there's a way that we can kind of clarify that. For all of those items, they list the entire budgeted amount for equipment in its entirety, not for that individual item. And I don't know if that is a clean way for us to know, like on the vac truck, for instance, it's a $631,000 item. Excuse me, that was for the mowers. But at the budgeted amount always says 2.8 million.
Yeah.
And so you've got the 2.8 million, and it's listed. It's listed the same for the mowers, for the severe duty mowers, for the vac truck, for all of those things. It's listed, and then the smaller amount is off to the side. And I don't know if that's a clear way to do that, to judge, because one of the important things is if we're going to take not a competitive bid, we kind of need to know that that item is coming in within the realm of where they're at, rather than that whole budgeted item, if that makes sense.
It does.
So,
It does. That's an easy adjustment.
so
Never heard that.
So there. All right, very good.
We may have a visitor not on the agenda. All right.
Our next item on our agenda, and I would ask you, Commissioner John Hinkleman, if you would explain to us about what the undersheriff wanted.
He already did.
Yeah, but about buying the guns, did you talk about that, the ammunition?
I did waivers, so.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. And then our next report will come from Commissioner Freeling from a bid opening, et cetera.
Absolutely. So we did have Jake in to open up a bid. So 2 weeks ago, we out for zero-turn mowers for the road department, and we received no responses. So what we did is we reviewed everything that some of the bidders received the request and invitation to bid. So in doing so, we resent it to 7 bidders. 2 responded. Mid-County out of St. Joseph, Michigan responded, and Bill Walks Outdoor Living out of Berrien Springs, Michigan responded. So we recommended for it to go back to staff to review. The lowest bid was from Bill Walk for $14,088.60. Hear me out there. The other thing that we had 2 more waiver requests that came through. One was for animal control. This was for a specialized contractor to do some troubleshooting for the HVAC units that are in the dog kennel. And that was a request of $1,273. And the last thing that we had as a waiver request came from the Public Defender's Office. This was for single source double day office products for office furniture in the amount of $16,748.40. And this is out of their grant dollars that they receive. And this is updating furniture that, no, I hear that they're hard to get furniture equipment for them.
They're downtown in Chicago.
Are they?
Yeah, they just opened a store. This is the office.
Nice.
Sorry.
I got your reference. Absolutely. Madam Chair, those are the items that you've asked for me to report on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we had a citizen that confirmed and talked to us about the broadband. Mike Haskins, am I saying this name?
Yeah.
Mike Haskins talked to us and said that he's paying for Wi-Fi and cell phone and all, but he gets 0.2 or something of it. It's not working well. So there's a need all over Berrien County for better connections with the broadband. And I think we especially saw that when we were having our Zoom meetings so much. Sometimes the commissioner would be just frozen. He said, where'd they go? And so there is a real need in our community, and that is the report.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for finance? Before we move to commissioner reports, I want to jump back to the public hearing on the budget. There was discussion about the year-end budget process. And every year, typically between Christmas and New Year's, we do a reconciliation and then a pour over of funds into the next budget cycle, the next year. The 29th of December is a Thursday. We often don't have a full board meeting that day because that's kind of like a Christmas present to our staff here to not have us come in, not have to see us, yeah. But the finance committee may very well need to meet that day. So I would plan on it for the time being, plan on meeting on the 29th, just finance. And we'll see, I mean, if we have pressing business, we will have a board meeting, sorry. But otherwise, we probably won't. Yes, sir.
Mac, my calendar is correct. The 29th is on a Wednesday.
Oh, it is?
So it's the 30th. And when that happened, I believe last year, finance met on the last day of the year or something to approve the
CARES Act.
The CARES Act stuff and
Oh.
all of that. So it might be Friday on the 31st. Just
Okay, well,
throwing that out
sometime
there.
that week then, whatever
Must have
suits you.
champagne then.
Yes.
Are we closed on the 31st?
I don't know. We have your party hats and everything. Yeah, finance is here.
For the New Year's? I think we are. Yeah, so it would have to be on the 30th then, or you could do it earlier in the week.
Yeah.
But in all likelihood, the board won't meet unless we have some urgent business. So, okay, commissioner reports, John?
Long meeting, no report.
No report.
No report.
I got a report.
No, you don't.
So last Wednesday, I attended the Lake Michigan College votes event. I was a guest speaker along with State Senator Kim Lasada, her regional director, Dan Carrick. And we had a good time. We spoke with students as well as community members about the importance of voting and just being engaged in the community on a more local level. And we discussed things dealing with the county, particularly getting on boards and committees. So if anyone, happens to see any applications of some 21, 22-year-old college students for the current board openings, don't be surprised. But we had a good time. And yeah, that's my report.
Thank you, Ray.
No report.
No report.
No report, but I hope we consider them.
No report, no report. I got nothing.
No report.
Okay.
And we're moving.
And the administrator probably doesn't have a whole lot to add, right?
So members of the board, the budget presentation, if you'd like for us to do it a second time, we'll happily go another 20, 30 minutes with you all. Yeah. In all seriousness, thank you all for taking the time to work through today's issue. I'm going to be out of the office tomorrow, so this weekend will mark the last mountain bike race of the season. So me and my oldest boy will be doing it. So the Iceman cometh. If you get bored and want to look us up, there'll be a live feed. There's about 5,000 people mountain biking on Saturday morning. The start line's supposed to be about 35 degrees. Hopefully it'll be a little warmer at the end. What's that?
You finish before football starts at noon?
If I don't, there's going to be a problem. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have fun.
Thanks.
I saw a photo of one of those, and there's literally steam coming off everyone who was riding as they were getting close to the end.
The 13-year-old son agreed about 6 months to do this, and as of yesterday, he was like, so any chance I can get out of this? And I'm like, nope.
Okay, folks, we're
Yes, sir.
Question, Brian. Could you comment on that Ox Creek in-kind donation?
Let me at the next meeting, I'll get you more details on how that all is working. I don't want to say something that isn't quite accurate.
Well, I'm curious, so thank you. I can wait.
all right. We're back to comments. This time, it's not limited to the agenda items, anything under the sun in 2 minutes or less.
Good afternoon, I guess it is, everyone. Jerry Cirk, Benton Charter Township. Just wanted to touch base on a couple of things with you folks. The last time I was here, I was telling you about a guy who rescued a gentleman out of a house. He received a plaque from Orinoco Township that all the Masons went out to. The Masons sock drive is still underway. We actually picked up 2 new places for drop-offs of socks. One of them is the Buchanan physical fitness place. I forget the exact name for that.
Redbud Fitness?
Pardon me?
Redbud Fitness.
Redbud Fitness, I think is correct. Okay. The other place is the Sidecar Cafe in Watervliet, which is putting us pretty much doing the sock drive over almost the entire county. So we're really thrilled with getting that out some. We had our election of officers Tuesday night, and unfortunately, you're stuck with me again. Have a good week.
Thank you. Oh, anybody else have anything? Yes, sir.
Michael Hoy, City of Benton Harbor, 292 Bellevue. The reason I'm giving out the address because it's the oldest church of Benton Harbor. This coming up weekend, I'll be wearing 2 hats. One is from the Obama Foundation, where I'm a leader, of the Obama Foundation. Benton Harbor is a charter member of his foundation called My Brother's Keeper. My Brother's Keeper has 219 leaders. I'm one of them for the nation, for the city of Benton Harbor. We partnered with Flint when Flint went through their water crisis. My Brother's Keeper made sure that they kept on track with the My Brother's Keeper program, and also we took water up to them. In return, this coming Sunday from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we have the Buffalo Riders are coming with the Rough Riders of Benton Harbor. We're going to meet them halfway, and they're going to be bringing water to us. If you'd like to come out and be with us from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, the Rough Riders and the Buffalo Freedom Riders will be meeting up, bringing water in from Flint as we partner together to help each other, because that's what My Brother's Keeper is, to help each other through these crises. If you'd like to come out to be with us, it's again on Sunday at 292 Bellevue, the oldest church in Benton Harbor, from the Legacy Group, and it's from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Robert Tenarski, Lincoln Township. Wanted to touch on a few topics. Basically, I'm here, you probably recognize me from before, speaking out against mask and quarantine mandates in schools. Mr. Elliott, Mr. Majerick, you've already mentioned this this morning, excuse me. But Mr. Elliott, you talked about if there was a backdoor mask mandate, and I'm here to tell you there is. And it really boils down to a conversation I had yesterday with the Lakeshore School Board president. Masking is in place due to the quarantine guidance from the Berrien County Health Department. Basically, if we don't mask, there's going to be more quarantines that are required in the schools, and that's what Mr. Majerick was getting at this morning, I believe. Lakeshore is also getting legal guidance due to fear of legal liability. Basically, what happens if one of our kids gets sick? And, very, very remote chance. We talked about that last night at length. The odds of getting in a car wreck and getting hurt are much greater than a kid getting hurt from COVID. And even though that's very, very low, Lakeshore doesn't want to take the chance because that's the recommendations they're getting from the health department. And it's always easier to lean and kind of hide behind the health department and say, well, we're doing what they're telling us to do. And that's where we're going for cover, just in case something happens. But I'll also say on the positive side that Lakeshore School Board is pushing the Berrien County Health Department to change that guidance. And what I'm really here to ask is that you all push that as well, because the quarantine guidance is forcing the masking issue in a lot of these schools. And we really got to work as a way to get creative to get around this, to get over this hump, because, we know that you had mentioned Edwardsburg Schools is doing it differently. Fowlerville
2 minutes, sir.
Fowlerville schools has also ended their quarantine as of this week. And I have a article here on that for you to read. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Robert Phineas. I'm from Lincoln Township, and I rushed up here because I want to follow Bob along the same lines. First of all, thank you, commissioners, that had to do with answering my email and getting me the information that I was looking for today. I really appreciate that. But it does address, particularly Commissioner Majerick's issues today. To help that high school principal, what we need to do is reduce the quarantining, to change the quarantine guidelines. And they are just guidelines. And in the email that came from Courtney Davis, who, by the way, is no longer employed here, in case you were wondering, and want to do something to change this, it seems to me that this would be the time to do that. So in her bottom line, quote unquote, it says universal masking leads to fewer infections, fewer kids in isolation. That's due to her own rules. That doesn't have anything to do with science. It doesn't have anything to do with anything that's required. Those are her rules that have to do with the quarantining. The quarantining of well children has never made sense and will never make sense. I would also go so far as to say that I can't say 100%. The majority of parents, if your child's sick, you're going to keep them home or go pick them up from school. We've always done that. It has nothing to do with COVID. If your kid is sick at school, you go and pick them up. It's just what we do. If they're sick, we keep them home. That's parental responsibility. We don't need the health department. We don't need the schools to tell us if our kids are sick or not. If they're not sick, they should be in school. I'm really tired of the superintendent that I spoke to this week, also of Lakeshore Schools, and a couple of the board members. And I don't know if they're hiding behind it or they're misinformed, because after reading a lot of the information from Courtney, it's hard not to be misinformed. But I don't understand why we're confusing the masking and the quarantining with well and sick children. It's like that's all in one pile together. It's not that difficult.
2 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Amy Foster, Lincoln Township. I continue to have concerns about the Board of Health. Apparently, they cancel monthly meetings at random in order to avoid public scrutiny. What are they actually accomplishing right now? Do they insist on operating out of the public eye? They are a county entity and are accountable to the taxpayers of this county. Furthermore, apparently the health department has told the schools that they will shut them down if they do not follow their quarantine guidelines. While other schools and counties are not quarantining asymptomatic healthy students based on school exposure, the Berrien County Health Department continues to push their mask agenda by making quarantines ridiculous for unmasked individuals. There is no public health order. They have no legal authority to enforce their guidelines. Please clarify this for the schools. At this point, the Berrien County Health Department has become like a controlling boyfriend that you don't know how to break up with. The schools need to break up with the Berrien County Health Department regarding quarantines and establish their own sensible COVID guidelines. They can inform students of exposure and have them self-monitor for symptoms. Please correct the record. We are sick of being haunted by the ghost of Courtney Davis past, and the emperor has no clothes. The jig is up. There is no mandate. The schools can do what they want, but they need you to tell them that because they're afraid, and they need to man up. Everybody needs to man up. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Fauci.
James Kovach again. I'm here to reinforce what everybody's already said. One thing I would like to add is that the jig is up, and that there's a team of parents out there that are very financially off that will cause these schools more financial damage than what they're going to be worried about. And they really need to reconsider what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Jennifer Mayo Fujawa, Lincoln Township. I just wanted to follow up. I got a call from Lakeshore High School a couple of days ago telling me my daughter had been in close contact with somebody who tested positive for COVID. However, they were late in contacting us, so we didn't actually have to quarantine. They weren't able to give me any details of that, but they felt fully comfortable asking personal information about my family's health. This is completely inappropriate. And as it was said, the jig is up. We're done tolerating this. You guys have some influence, more so than we do. We're just asking that we need to stop passing the buck, and every agency and every school and everybody's just passing the buck to whoever's above them. The hierarchy needs to stop, and we need to start being assertive and saying, this is our community and we're taking it back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Bednar, Sodas.
Yes, sir.
I've mentioned it a few times. You have given basically the care, custody, and control of the road department to Chris Cook and Evermarsh for $20,000 a month. We have yet to see Chris Cook as a manager come into this room. You just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars today on equipment without a quote unquote bid guideline, if you want to call it that. You're going behind the scenes to buy equipment. There are no specs wrote. Oh, gee, MDOT uses it, so it's good for us. MDOT runs state highways, state trunk lines, not county roads. As far as I'm concerned, you're opening these bids in a quote unquote semi-private meeting because you're having 3 meetings at the same time. One person can't go to all 3 meetings at the same time. They're never publicly posted on a website. They're never given to the public. It's done in private in a meeting. And I'm beginning to wonder, once they're approved by finance, oh, we're gonna turn it back over to the department to make the decision. That's the end of it. You never know who bid, how much was bid, how many bidders there were for any department. I'm beginning to wonder if it's a violation of Open Meetings Act.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
And now for something completely different. Call me Neanderthal, right? I think I told you about that before. This is 3 years old, and I think it stopped growing, okay? I want to know what my ancestors look like. This is what they look like. I'll let my hair down here really look like. Well, I'll let it grow in a couple more years, see what happens. Now, I want to talk about something we all do as soon as we're born. Use a bathroom. Now, and I noticed somebody put up a sign says that good bathroom down there is only to be used for people that work here. Now, you expect, there are about 22 people here, you expect us to use that little hole in the wall right over there. You walk in there, there's one toilet and one sink and paper. You walk in the other one where it says boys, can't lock the door. There are two stools, 2 urinals, 2 sinks, and plenty of paper. There's no waiting to go in there. Now, I don't know who put up that sign up there denying me, part of the public, to use a public restroom. I think we ought to switch the signs, make the people that work here use that hole in the wall over there. Now, I demand that you take that sign down. I want to know the reasons why we're not able to use that. So that's ridiculous. Am I the only one that notices that?
I broke through.
So next time we meet, I want to know, somebody better give me the answer. Who did it and why they're doing it? What's the reason for it? Maybe you ought to come up with a resolution. No, somebody write it up, says, well, because I was in the toilet over there and the guy next to me let off some gas. Or I walked in there and it was smelling. Or I walked in there was a urine on the floor.
Fortunately, there's 2 minutes.
Whereas, give all these excuses. So the next time I want to know who did that and what authority you have to throw us out of there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My government teacher.
If anyone has anything else to say, that's going to be hard to top.
I know where I got. There's your microphone, Township. I hate to see my 2 minutes go to waste. Anyway, it's a hard act to follow. But I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson here. I'm 80-some years old. Okay, we lined up in the gymnasium to get TB shots, measles, mumps, chicken pox, and I can show you my chicken pox scars from 80 years ago. And this being done in schools is nothing new. It's been going on since schools was established. The health department is basically just doing their job to protect my health. Now, I could probably be a poster boy for vaccines. I've had them since I was in grade school 80-some years ago. They're not all bad. I can see polio. I worked with a guy that had polio. That wasn't pretty at all.
And one night we had a meeting and he left early. It was in the wintertime. He fell down out in the parking lot. He was probably out there for about 35, 40 minutes because he couldn't get up. So, you know, I have all the faith in the world in vaccines, and I'm pretty healthy for being 80 some years old. So, you know, I got a little nervous about people saying, well, you know, they're all bad. No, they're not all bad. But, you know, and I'm sure my parents had the same questions about us getting polio shots and measles shots, and mumps and whooping cough and all that sort of thing. But we all lined up and got them. So, you know, for whatever that's worth, the discussion on them, it doesn't matter where they're at, whether they're done in the schools, or they're done in doctor's offices, or they're done out on the playground. What's the difference? It's all the same.
2 minutes.
Just because it's in schools doesn't mean that it's bad or it shouldn't be there. Thank you.
Mr. Scheer, we'll add 15 seconds if you wish to say anything about the bathroom situation.
Time's up. You gotta take 15 seconds to think about it. Don't go back that far in your neck.
Oh, yeah, now way back in 1936 and 40, we didn't have all the other
Okay.
The came in handy if you know about paper.
All right, thank you. Assuming there aren't any other public comments, we'll move to other business, but if anyone still has something they'd like to share, need to do it now. Okay, other business. Anyone have anything?
Mac, I'd just like to make a statement. Everything that we do in the Finance Committee is open to the public at any time. We have resolutions that are on the books that we've passed on our bidding process. We've had lengthy discussions at the 10:30 meeting on the approval of our waiver forms, and what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. And I take a little bit of umbrage with the thought that I'm having a secret meeting with county funds, and that just isn't happening. And I just want everybody to know that. I don't appreciate that one bit. I mean, we as county commissioners have a tough job to do, and we're doing it the best of our ability, and that's all there is to it.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything under other business? If not, we'll move to announcements and reminders. We right now are scheduled just to meet once more on the 18th, 2 weeks from today. Of course, Thanksgiving is the 25th. And before that, next week is Veterans Day. So at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, please pause from your activities of the day and say a prayer and give thanks to so many servicemen and servicewomen who make it possible for us to get together and do things like this. If there's nothing else, we stand adjourned. I'm sorry, sir.
Brownfield is today at 1:30.
And I think BC bid
BC bid
today also. All right, we're adjourned for 2 weeks.